midnight at Stonecrest Cemetery. The moment the clock struck midnight, the air changed. It wasn't the cold that bit first. It was the feeling of eyes sliding over your spine like wet fingers, brushing your mind before your skin. On that quiet night, beneath a sky full of stars that should have been tranquil, the ground itself seemed restless. Most people in Stonecrest had never given much thought to the cemetery just beyond the gravel road, the one locals called the Stonecrest grounds, even though no sign ever bore its name. It was easy to miss, unremarkable from a distance. Flat, unadorned earth with rows of headstones and a few great oaks that cast long shadows with every wind gust. Yet every longtime resident knew one thing no tourist would ever suspect. People who walked near the cemetery at midnight sometimes didn't walk away the same way. When the three friends, Isaac, Lydia, and Mara, first talked about going to the cemetery at midnight, none of them believed it would lead to terror. They joked, they teased, they laughed like it was just another dare. "We're adults," Isaac said. "Nothing's going to jump out at us, and it's just a cemetery." So they drove out along that dust-covered gravel road where the silence grew thick long before the headstones appeared. The cemetery spread in front of them, unlit and abandoned. 24 ancient graves from the late 1800s. Markers worn by time, names faded, dates that once meant life now just a string of numbers. In the stillness, the very ground seemed to breathe. They joked about ghost stories they'd heard from classmates, legends of cemeteries that whispered secrets, of restless dead, of spirits that measured approaching visitors and heartbeats, and took what they found wanting. These were the kinds of tales that lived in high school hallways and late-night chats. None were real, none, they believed, until this night. At exactly 12:07 a.m., Isaac stepped off the gravel and onto the soft grass. There was a sound almost like a breath, deep and low, as if the earth itself exhaled when he walked past a cracked marble headstone. Lydia, standing beside him, shivered. "Did you hear that?" she asked. They froze. Absolute silence answered, but the hair on the back of their necks prickled. They moved deeper. Shadow swallowed their steps. And that's when Lydia noticed the ground wasn't still. Not entirely. A thin trail of soil, darker than the earth around it, made a crooked path from one grave to another, as if something had dragged itself forward, inch by agonizing inch. "Come on," Mara said, trying bravery but sounding fragile. "It's just roots or mud, right?" But even she didn't sound convinced. There was something wrong about the smooth, sinuous line across the ground. Too deliberate, too unnatural. And when Isaac stepped over it, he nearly tripped. They found it about 20 feet in, the oldest stone in the cemetery, a marble slab buried deep with moss, illegible inscriptions worn into blurs of weathered white. Lydia traced the fractured lettering with her finger. "I think it says, 'Here lies Mary.'" Only, the date was odd. It read, "Died 14th of March, 1888. Not unusual. Old graves show old dates." But then they noticed something else. Carved beneath the name were two numbers, not carved in stone, but scratched, as if someone had used a sharp edge hurriedly. 0020 zeros. Midnight. All three felt it then. A prickle, not at their necks, but inside their minds. A chill that didn't come from the night air, but from a place deeper, darker. Isaac laughed nervously, but his voice tremored. "This place gives me the creeps," he admitted, eyes darting between the trees. It was then, just as he spoke, that they heard it. A soft whisper drifting through the graves. Not loud, not urgent, just present. At first, they thought they were imagining it, a trick of wind through the trees, but it wasn't. It was too structured, too intentional. The voice wasn't saying words, just a breathy whisper, like someone calling from just beyond hearing. Mara looked at Isaac. "Is that someone there?" No answer came from the darkness, only the whisper sadder, now closer, as if the unseen presence was right behind them waiting. Every instinct screamed at them to leave. But before they could step back, something shifted. A shadow detached itself from the perimeter, where starlight failed and darkness was thicker, and moved. Not walked, glided, not urgent, deliberate. It glided between headstones like water seeking the deepest part of a stream. It never fully took shape. Just a darkness within darkness, with a presence that felt aware. Lydia gasped. "I think it saw us." That was when the whisper became clearer. Not quite a word, but a sigh. Low, heavy, long, like someone stuck between this world and the next. Isaac's breath caught. Mara took a step back. The air had grown too dense. They felt watched, but not from afar, from inside themselves. Lydia's phone blinked. The screen read, 12:31 a.m., just 30 minutes in. And that's when they heard it. A stone clicks on the ground behind them. Just a small pebble. But it sounded like a gunshot in the still air. Isaac spun around. Nothing, just headstones and the black abyss of unmapped earth. Click. Another pebble. Then another. It was like footsteps, but slow, deliberate, unhurried. Not approaching, just circling. They were inside a ring of sound, a circle closing with invisible hands. Every pulse in their veins screamed fear. They spotted it then, a bench beneath a tree they hadn't noticed before. Cemetery benches are common, not this one. Carved into the backrest was a phrase barely visible by starlight. "Sit, and remember not all who rest here were ever truly alive." A sudden wind rattled the leaves overhead, a hollow sound, like laughter. Isaac took 2 steps forward. His foot struck something solid, a book, an old leather-bound journal. He bent and picked it up. The cover had no title, just a single symbol etched into the worn leather, a circle with a slash. When he opened it, the first line he saw was typed, not written, in careful small letters. "Do not disturb what was buried half alive, for the dead awake when the living come." The next page was blank, and the page after, and all the pages that followed. Then the whisper came again, closer than ever. No longer distant, no longer indistinct. Clearer, breathier, right beside them. And for the first time, they heard actual words. Not from one voice, but many. "You should not have come." The tone wasn't angry, it wasn't loud, it was matter of fact. Like a warning from someone who had been waiting for centuries. Lydia turned to run, but her feet felt rooted. Isaac opened his mouth to shout, but his voice fled. Mara dropped to her knees, eyes wide with helplessness. And in that moment, they understood. This was no ordinary graveyard. This was a place of unrest, a place where something had been buried, but not content to remain below. What happened next was not sudden. There were no ghastly figures, no screams, no violence, just a pressure, heavy and invasive, like the air itself was trying to push them outward beyond the cemetery gates. Their legs finally moved. They ran. Not with fear alone, but with the sharp, primal understanding that they were not meant to be there. Not for midnight dares, not for jokes, not out of curiosity. They reached the car, none of them spoke, not a word. Not until the engine turned over. And then the silence broke. It wasn't real, Isaac whispered, but none of them believed it. None of them could. Days passed. They told friends what happened. Most laughed, some dismissed it as imagination. But late that night, every one of them heard voices, dreams that felt more like warnings, like something trying to reach them through the quietest moments of the day. Lydia began waking at 12:31 a.m. every night, the exact minute they found the journal. Mara told her reflection in the mirror, who once spoke back with a voice she didn't recognize. Isaac refused to talk about the cemetery at all. They learned something no book or ghost story could teach. Some places are not meant for the living to discover. Cemeteries are more than soil and stone. They are repositories of memory, grief, longing, and unfinished stories. In folklore across cultures, visiting burial grounds at midnight has long been tied to eerie phenomena, dare games that invite legends to blur with reality, like spirits drawn to ritualistic actions or specific times in the night. And though this story is fictional, it is grounded in a fundamental truth. Our fear of the unknown is real. Our vulnerability and isolation is real. What we invite by entering places we do not understand can linger long after we leave. So remember what this story teaches you. Promise yourself you'll never ignore that uneasy first feeling. Never return to a place just to prove a dare. Never let curiosity push you into darkness that feels too alive. Remember what this story teaches you. Promise yourself you'll never make the same mistake. Please subscribe for more chilling tales. Thank you.